Welcome back to Writers of Silicon Valley. I'm your host, Patrick Stafford. Before we get into the interview today, I want to talk to you about an opportunity that's available and you may be interested in. UXCC, UX Content Collective, is running a 6-week AI accelerator. And now this is designed for content designers who have been experimenting with AI, who want to know how to get the most out of AI, but they're not quite sure about how to go about it. So the idea is this is a 6-week cohort, a small cohort to build a working prototype within 6 weeks for a problem that you have. Maybe that's at work, or maybe you just want to build something just to show off your skills and have in your portfolio. As opposed to just building on your own or trying to hobble something together at work, you can build something in a supportive environment and meet other content designers and learn actually what works and what doesn't work. And you can build something that can get you some influence at work and help you solve an actual problem, not just something that looks cool or that seems cool, but is actually going to help you. So whether you're trying to help people create UI text, or whether you're trying to analyze documents for changes or something, whatever it is, join the cohort. You'll meet other content designers and you'll learn how to build something over the 6 weeks. And you won't just learn to build it, you'll learn to scope it and look at different building requirements and technical requirements. It's going to be great. And if you're interested, we're now accepting applications. I would act quick. They end on Friday, January 30. So I'll link in the show notes. So if you're interested, check out the Content Design AI Accelerator. Okay, enough of that. Welcome back to the podcast. I had a really great time with this interview, and sometimes we can end up talking about, what's in the weeds or what's causing us problems. And I really enjoyed this interview because we're talking about what's coming next. So in this interview, I speak with Carly Gray, and I've worked with Carly for a long time at UX Content Collective. She was most previously at Meta, and she's worked at a number of different companies, including North. And her expertise is in augmented reality. And she has worked on smart glasses. She's worked on smartphones. But her focus now has been, most recently, has been on augmented reality and content design for that type of experience. Now, this is important, I think, because even though VR hasn't really taken off in the way that people thought it would, and it never will, in my opinion, augmented reality is something different. If you can wear a pair of glasses that look exactly like the glasses you wear now, but they show you key information, then that changes everything about your day and how you interact with technology. And it raises all sorts of interesting challenges from a design perspective. And Carly is really at the forefront of this. She's one of a handful of content designers in the world working on these types of problems. So in this interview, we talk about her work, the future of augmented reality. And I'll just point out, and we mentioned this in the interview, Apple is rumored to be debuting a pair of smart glasses this year. So this isn't theoretical. This may actually happen very soon. And if it does, it's going to be a new area of technology that content design can get involved in. So we're looking to the future a little bit today. So if you're interested, I really hope you enjoy it. And Carly is a fantastic, talented content designer who has a lot to say about this. So, and she's one of the few who can. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll stop talking now and we can get on to the interview. Again, applications closed for the AI Accelerator this Friday, January 30, and the US time. So definitely apply if you are interested. All right, on with the interview. You have the scariest desk that's ever been on this podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's a pumpkin, there's a coffin, there's
Michael Myers.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I have to admit, horror is a bit of a blind spot for me. I've seen maybe the classics, but it's never been something where I'm like, oh, I desperately have to go and see the next horror movie. You, on the other hand, a horror aficionado, fanatic.
Yes.
What would you call yourself?
Horror enjoyer. Yeah.
Enjoyer. That's a much better term. What is it about horror that interests you so much, or that you like so much about it?
Yeah, I think I guess before we get into content design, my very first job was a haunted house actor. So
Really?
my parents had a home haunt. It was a very humble home haunt, but they decorated the front yard, and my dad would accept like canned goods for the food bank and stuff as admission. And yeah, it was just like I was voluntold, okay, Carly, it's time for you to be a zombie in the yard. And I learned the Thriller dance and everything. And like once every hour, I would dance the Thriller in the yard as a zombie.
Can you
So
do you
yeah,
still
it's
know
just
the dance? Can you still do
a
it?
little bit, yeah,
A
yeah. And
little
most
bit?
of it was like improv because I'm like a teenager or something. So
Sure.
like how official is it actually? Probably not a whole lot, but yeah, horror's just been like, and Halloween specifically has been just been really special and like part of the family business. And then
Yeah.
I have a few things and do like a small like outdoor situation, but Halloween as a kid was like the one time I was allowed to like be anything I wanted. And I feel like
Mm,
that's like consistently what a lot of people love about horror too. And it explores our fear in a safe way. And I
mm,
feel like that's also a lot like what makes it cool for us to explore is like our fear and like how we can face it. And
mm,
yeah, just like it's not an individual experience either because a lot of all of us experience fear at some point.
mm. What's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie is Trick or Treat.
Okay.
It is it is about a little guy that enforces the rules of Halloween. And it's like an anthology. It was a former comic book and they made it into a movie.
That's cool.
And it quintessential 2006 vibes if you're looking for early 2000s like
Mi-
nostalgia.
Okay. I can't promise that I'll watch it because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. But I love The Witch,
Oh,
the Robert
yes.
Eggers movie. That
Yes.
movie freaks me out. I tend to get really scared by movies that are like existential dread rather than
Mhm.
like jump scares and violence and stuff. That movie
Mhm.
creeps me out because you don't like barely anything happens in it in terms of violence or scares or
Mhm.
whatever, but it's a lot of thinking about what's out there in the woods and whatever. And for anyone who
Yeah.
hasn't seen the movie, this family is basically cast out of a Puritan community in colonial America, and they have to go live in the woods, and then all sorts of creepy stuff happens. But what freaks me out about that movie is that the people in the community that banished them were right and correct.
Yes.
Like that makes it even scarier. The fact that they
Yes.
were completely justified in banishing this family. But I remember like watching that movie and just freaking out. And the other one, I guess I don't know if you would call it a horror movie. I think it's a horror movie. Is the original Alien. I think that's
Mm.
an incredible science fiction horror movie that the rest of the movies haven't really quite lived up to, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
What is scarier
Because
than the unknown? Like what is in outer space, you know?
yeah,
Right?
absolutely, and because you barely see the alien in it, it's
Yeah.
all what's lurking around the corner and stuff. So, well, look, you're braver than I am because I couldn't watch those types of movies on a on a regular basis. But maybe I'll build up my muscle and watch some
A
more.
tolerance can be built, but yeah, it's been a lifetime for me, so I'm a bit desensitized at this point.
And speaking of horror, let's talk about content design. That was a terrible segue. Um, Carly, I've
Scary.
known you for a long time now, and I've been a huge fan of you for a while. And we've been working together at UXCC for quite a long time. And I have always been impressed, I think, by your knowledge and professionalism about things that have not happened yet, but are continuing to happen. And you're one of those people who is really at like the forefront of what's happening in content design and have been for a while. So I'm specifically talking about AR and VR experiences. I
Mhm.
know everyone's all on about AI at the minute, including me, but you were working on wearable devices. Um, before they were cool, to use the phrase, but you were doing that several years ago,
Mhm.
and it's only now that companies are now starting to even think more about how is this going to work. And Meta's come out with its Ray Bans that are getting more popular, and there's all the rumors, of course, that Apple will be going into this space with some glasses, and who knows what's going to happen. But I think it is I think it's really cool that you've been in this space, because there's not very many people in it, and it's unique to find a content designer who's working in such a cool space. So before we get started, can you just give everyone a little bit of your background and basically the story of Carly to now?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I love this question on the podcast because you get to see where everyone comes from. But I feel like a lot of content designers come from tech writing, and that was my first professional writing gig. Was I started as a technical writer. I worked on BlackBerry 10 smartphones, so that was actually when they moved from the physical keyboard to the big slab of glass. But there I wrote all of the how-to documentation, but that was kind of like OG content design. Like before we had a word for it, before people had like UX writing or content design roles, like 100% allocated to that. Um, Content design was 25% of my technical writing role. So in addition to writing the help docs, I also wrote the strings, the error messages, like all the fun stuff that you see in the product, for the BlackBerry 10 games app and the password keeper app. And then I always thought that was like the most fun part of my job. I loved writing for the product. I loved shipping and handing off strings. And as I got into another role, another technical writing role, I was like, yeah, I wonder if I can make that like 100% of my job.
Hmm.
And then I decided to get certified in UX design because I thought maybe that was the only way that I could work on a product again, is maybe becoming a UX designer like that. So I got certified in UX through the Interaction Design Foundation, did a couple courses there, and then discovered the world of content strategy. And there was a role at a startup at the time called Thalmic Labs, but they were about to rebrand. And there's a content and knowledge management role there, content strategy role. And I applied and I got in. And my very first day orientation, I thought I was going to be wearing for their typical product, which was wrist control EMG like band called Myo, because I was their in market product. I thought I was going to be writing for that. And I go into my orientation. Oh, just kidding! We're coming out with this very exciting AR smart glasses product, and it's awesome. And that's what you're going to be working on. I'm like, wow! I was like, it was so under wraps. I had no idea I was going to be working on this product when I was interviewing. Um, and yeah, like needless to say, I was hooked on day one, learning about the application, the vision for it. Um, it was very different than any other like wearable device up until that point, because it was all mainly wrist based. There was like, Pebble is another like locally known wearable product
Hmm.
that has now since been discontinued, but a lot of the wearables in the space have been more wrist form.
Yep.
So this is the first time we're putting like tech on your face that's not like a full on like VR headset, for an example. It's meant to be wearable. It's meant to be a companion and not something that you load up to play like an immersive game. Um, so yeah, I ended up being the only content person there. So if you know startup mentality, it's like I did a lot of jobs. I wore a lot of hats there. So I got the opportunity to work on, yes, the help docs, yes, the product, but I also did a lot of email marketing. I did a lot of copywriting. Worked a lot with the support teams and like helped them with support, because when we launched, it got so popular that we were inundated with a lot of requests and things like that. And then eventually we moved a lot of our sizing to this app. So I also had to create like a video tutorial that's probably still on the internet today on like how you can manually like size your glasses and fit them to your face without going to an optician. Um, because that was the technology in it. It was an AR display that was like custom fit to your face. So it
Mm.
projected a set of like three lasers onto a holographic film on the lens, and then what bounced back is a display that only you could see. So unlike a lot of the other smart glasses products that had like a more digital display, it looked very obvious that you were wearing smart glasses that had something going on or something funny with them. This was meant to be like, yeah, a display that's there when you need it, invisible to the person in front of you, so it doesn't look like you're being rude and like looking down at your phone at a notification. You could stay present and talk to the person in front of you while wearing this cool pair of glasses, and then you could keep up with your sports game. You could dismiss the display or check the weather alerts and then move on with the conversation. So yeah, very different product. It got acquired by Google. So my role wasn't a part of that acquisition, but I was able to work on a lot of cool things there, and then made my way to Meta. So I did work on Ray-Ban Stories, which is now called Ray-Ban Meta. I worked on a lot of the media experiences for those glasses because there is a camera in the frame, two cameras, and I got to work a lot on the Instagram integrations, as well as the settings and IA in the companion app. So yeah, it's been a challenge to get, it's the next stage of computing. And like you said, that was in 2018 that I joined North, I believe. So now we're at 20, it's almost been 10 years. Wow. Uh, but almost
Yeah.
10 years. And now glasses are finally gaining traction. I think we're finally seeing some product market fit. We're seeing some real use cases and real productivity game changers like live translation, which is a feature that you could use on Ray-Ban Meta.
Yep.
You have an assistant on your glasses. You can ask it questions. Again, like just getting you away from that tech neck, away from your phone, and getting you more present, which was always like the thing that super drew me about Focal smart glasses from
Mm.
North. That was always a vision, was tech for good. So hopefully we'll continue to see that for future, whether that's with Ray-Ban Meta or other smart glasses products.
It's a really cool journey. And you're right. Like the Ray Bans have been probably the product that have made people think like, okay, this could probably work. I mean, I know you're working in that space, so for a lot of people like yourself, you know that early, and so you see the future of it before everyone else does. But I think for a lot of people, and obviously there's a big difference between VR and augmented reality, and we'll talk about that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, they heard, oh, VR's the big thing, VR's the big thing, and then they try it and they think that's cool. I don't really see it being a big part of my life, because I think people just underestimate how easy it is for people to use a mouse and a keyboard and to not have a
Yeah,
giant big visor strapped on their face. The
yeah,
Apple VR set is it's certainly cool, and it's I've seen some cool use cases for it, but it's only the very early adopters who are sort of very keen on it, because I don't think they understand how the rest of the world operates with technology. The rest of the world doesn't care about the latest greatest thing, and they're happy to wear a massive headset on their face for hours if the experience is better. They don't want that.
yeah,
They want to wear a watch that looks just like a normal watch, or they want to wear a pair of glasses that looks just like any other glass. They don't want to stand out. And I think it's
yeah,
only when, and myself included, I don't want to walk around with a massive visor on my face, So it's this, I think, and who knows what Apple will come out with, but I think they're the company that'll probably be the one to, encourage widespread adoption of some sort of fashionable piece of tech. But as you just said,
yeah,
Meta got there first with the Ray Bans, and I certainly was impressed by just how normal they looked. I'm wondering,
yeah,
like, I know you can't talk too much internally about your work at North, and people's and Meta, like people's opinions about all of this, but I'm wondering, like, what's the general consensus you think about the 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 slow adoption of this type of technology? Is there a recognition that, like, yeah, we have to create something that's normal looking for people to use this, or is there a group of people, advocates, who are very much like I don't know, like what, questioning why is this taking so long. Yeah, just wondering
Mhm.
what the discussions are like internally at these types of companies about
Yeah.
what the approach is.
I think like a huge barrier, like the first gimme is price, because the glasses
Yeah.
are pretty expensive. Um, so that was a huge challenge even at North, is seeing like how like the amount of messages we got from people and like influencers, can I get a free pair, and market it like
Hmm.
people are desperate, they want to use it, they see the utility of it. It's just pricing is a barrier for a lot of people.
Yep.
um and if for glasses, we do have an option where you can get prescription, and of course some drug plans, some benefits plans cover that. But I think that's going to be like another step, is to see how we can get these affordable. And I feel like that's the barrier for a lot of VR headsets as well, is like, you know, budgets are tighter year after year. I feel like there's so many news stories that come out that people are spending less around Christmas, things like that. So, and even when we're doing focals, the second, like you nailed it, Patrick, about wearability and that tolerance, for how much weight you can have on your face for like a certain, like all day wear. That was like another thing that we tested relentlessly and did like a lot of research on. And I think a good, like Meta had a great partner with Ray-Ban, who is AKA Luxottica. They manufacture pretty much, I don't know the official stat, but it's probably like 80% of the glasses market comes out of Luxottica,
Right.
because they do Oakley as well. So
Hmm.
I think that's also a design that you can get. You can get Oakley, Meta Ray-Ban stories or smart glasses. Um, and having a partner like that has been doing glasses for decades is just incredible. Like they know good design, they know comfortable design. So I think it's going to take more of those types of partnerships. Because if you look at other competitor products, either they look really goofy and dorky. There was one competitor that had like a pack that you had to like strap or keep in your pocket to control it.
Yeah.
And it's like people
I'm
aren't
not
gonna
doing that.
want, yeah, no. So it's like it's price point, it's wearability and comfort, and then it's also input, right? So with
Yeah.
Ray-Ban Meta, you have your voice as input. There's like a touchpad on it. So that's gonna be, I think, the big three for why we haven't seen it as launch off as much as it could have, is just maybe those three pain points. But I think I'm seeing more people adopt, especially on the Ray-Ban Meta side, and I think because they're working on, making them look like real glasses and more familiar,
Hmm.
versus this like cyberpunk esque like wearable face technology.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting though, because you mentioned the idea of tech neck, right?
Yeah,
Looking at your phone all the time. The idea of wearables though brings up some interesting design problems, particularly with content design. So I wonder, yes, it's a problem that everyone's like looking at their phones and distracted. Absolutely.
yeah,
At least when that happens though, you can see that someone is distracted. Like, let's say I'm wearing glasses right now. Like,
hmm,
imagine if we're having this conversation and you can't see that I'm actually watching, you know, an NFL game in my eye. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you're a Simpsons fan, but there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer sits on a jury and he's wearing glasses that have eyes painted on them, and he's sleeping when you take them off. So it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, it brings up all of these new types of technological issues that we and social issues that we'd have to deal with as
Mm,
well. I mean, I know that there's the idea of like having a light on when you're using
yes.
it, and so there are design sensibilities built into it. But what kind of challenge does that raise for? Obviously, people seeing people can't see what you're doing, so that's not a content design issue. But in terms of the actual technology itself, how do the challenges you work on differ from the say or continue on from the best practices for content design on a traditional screen?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, because we don't have the real estate, and especially with Ray-Ban Meta, there was no AR display on the actual lens. It was just, you had a photo capability, you could record video, you could play music, it had speakers and a mic, you could do calls. So on the actual product, there wasn't like a surface area to write
Mm,
for. Um, so I guess, but for Focals, which did have an AR display, we had a very small. I think when I was working through the Figma files when I was working on Focals on that display, we had like a 40 pixel by 40 pixel little box,
yeah,
and that
wow.
was our little display. And like,
Yeah.
imagine trying to write like an error message to help people, like if they can't pair or they need to repair or something's not sending. There's not a lot of space to communicate that. Um, so the added challenge for me working on a product like that was I had to be able to lean on the different modalities and then also on the companion product, which was the companion app.
Mm,
So familiar, tried and true. I've worked on mobile apps before. That's really simple. But like thinking about what the glasses are communicating to the user and what the app can do to complement that
mm,
without, reiterating the same info. Um, that was one unique challenge, and then also maybe leaning on the voice aspect of it, or if there is like a speaker, which there were speakers on Focals, or the sound design if there's like an error. So working with the sound designer to say, is there a chime or something that we can play that
mm.
indicates, a pairing issue versus something like that you can just retry. So getting really creative with those types of modalities to help people getting using their glasses, and again, like away from the technology that takes them out of the moment, because errors happen. Errors
Mm.
happen. Products don't work properly. But that was the added challenge of working on an AR product, is just like the space constraints. Um, and then also just in general, just you don't want like a wall of text in front of your face. Like that
No.
is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve with, complementary technology and wearables that are so close to your face. I remember this image on like my first day at North. It was like this very dystopian like VR headset that had like 8 different plugs and tubes going into this like computer attachment, and this person was like very very sad in a corner and just like absorbed with so much information that was in this contraption on their face. And like that is the type of wearable that we wanted to get away from.
Yeah.
um so less is more, but then also like I feel like it's very tried and true for a lot of content design, is like we always want to be concise.
Mm.
But especially so on an AR product that's so close to your face, just being respectful and responsible with how much information that we show them, and seeing if we can, be a full stack content designer and think about other ways that we can signal information, whether it's sound or voice, or then eventually leaning on the mobile app to help us out.
It strikes me that as you're saying this, the we haven't yet reached like mass adoption of this technology, but it it doesn't seem that far away to me. Like we're clearly in that space where like there's early prototypes of it that it clearly like works at a prototype level. Obviously there are limitations in terms of battery power and so on. But I think as we've all seen over the past 20-25 years, everything's impossible until suddenly it isn't, right? Apple
Yeah,
solves the battery problem for phones, and then all of a sudden phones are everywhere. Or AI is out of reach until all of a sudden there's transformer
yeah,
architecture and now language models are everywhere. It doesn't really seem all that far fetched to me that, let's say, in even 5 years, there might be early versions of glasses on the market that everyone or more people are starting to wear, and content design all of a sudden has a new medium to play with. And
hmm
you've been here for, yeah, as you said, nearly 10 years. I'm wondering, for content designers who are thinking about the future, you sort of already talked a little bit about what they need to be thinking about. It's much smaller space. You can't really do the same types of things as you would on a screen. Have you had to change or adapt any types of approaches, because there aren't that many content designers doing what you do? So you're sort of having to make it up as you go along, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I'm lucky because there is a huge Reality Labs like content design team at Meta, and I've learned a lot from them. So they've been pioneering the space for probably longer than I have, especially like back to the Oculus days too.
Mm,
So I'm lucky to have learned a lot from them. But I think the biggest thing that I've had to do is I've had to adopt like some conversation design aspects because I've just by the nature of it. For focals anyway, we had this app that lets you, because they were custom fit to your face, had this app that used like the Face ID technology to scan your face to get measurements that we needed. Um, and of course, when you're like turning your head side to side and things like, you can't like go read
yeah.
instructional text. And if you give people a wall of text before they start something, they're just going to go, yeah, 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 sure, and then just start.
Mm,
So no one's thoroughly reading those things, especially when the exciting part is like, "Ooh, I get to preview what my new custom fit smart glasses look like." Yeah.
mm,
Um, so I've had to really think about the voice aspect side. Is like, how would a person instruct you or coach you through this process? Or if you were in an optometrist's office getting fit for this, what would they be saying to you? Like, why does this matter?
mm,
And then the same situation with the errors, like when things don't go right and someone's turned like 90 degrees in the wrong direction, they're not looking at their phone. How can we coach them or course correct them back to the right position that we need?
yeah.
So I've had to, get upskilled in conversation design. Um, Meta also had like a great team of conversation designers that I was able to learn from. Um, and yeah, I think that's going to be, as I see the trend for like content design in like 2026 and beyond, I think we are looking towards, like, I kind of joked about it being a full stack designer, but I think we are going to be becoming full stack designers, or like that's going to be the expectation.
Yeah.
Even beyond like AR, VR, wearable products, we're seeing a lot more need for proficiency in prototyping,
Yep.
a lot more need for proficiency in Figma and designing and creating components and things like that. So there's a lot more. The bar is higher,
Yeah.
and I think that's okay. I think that's okay for the discipline to evolve, and I think that uniquely positions you. Like I think a lot of us have actually thought of making the transition I have, from content design to product design or UX design, um, which is traditionally a more visual role. But and we're starting to see those skills like come up in job descriptions as like a
Yeah.
requirement for content designers. So I feel like that would be my advice, and like my sort of look into the crystal ball is we're gonna see a lot more um, upskilling in either like conversation design, especially on the wearable side, but also just full stack designing.
I agree, and I think it's like, the T-shaped skill model. The idea of the T-shaped skill model is that, for anyone listening who doesn't know, the idea is that you want to have your skills shaped like a T, in the sense that the top horizontal bar of the T represents a broad skill set, but then
Mm,
you have a very deep skill set in one area, which is the vertical bar of the T. And for content designers, obviously that's content design, but you also need to understand UX design. You might need to understand marketing, or product management, and so on. I think it's that horizontal T bar is sort of widening out now to include a
yeah.
little bit more, as you just said. I Anthropic just advertised for a content design role,
Yes.
and in that they mention you need to be proficient in prototyping and
Yes.
understanding how to make changes. I think this was Anthropic, or it may have been another job ad. You need to understand how your content surfaces in code,
Code.
and it's
Yes.
becoming. I'm seeing this in job ads all the time now, and it's just becoming so much
Mm-hmm.
more of a requirement. And it's actually why I'm not job searching, but it's why I've been spending more time creating things with Claude Code, like creating little apps and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, because I'm trying to understand and just get stuff delivered. And
Yeah.
it's I think sometimes people don't quite understand how fast things are moving at the minute. It is becoming like the way that software engineers work now is outrageously quick. I think obviously there's a danger that people overstate it. I think there's a whole heap of tech bros on Twitter, or I refuse to call it X, who are
Same here.
basically saying like,
Sorry,
yeah,
content
yeah,
designer
sorry,
X.
no, I'm not calling it X. Um, there's a whole group of them on there who are just like, companies are dead. You know, everything is going to be turned upside down. I'm not going that far. But if you speak to engineers who work on this stuff day to day, what they say is my everyday work has increased velocity because I now use AI to help me with the stuff I was already creating.
Hmm.
That's where the revolution is sort of happening. Not in like, oh, we're going to completely change the economy. It's just how we work day to day. It's kind of like how
Hmm.
people went from paper spreadsheets to working on Excel. Like it's a similar sort
Yeah.
of shift. And I think, as you said, like for content designers, understanding that shift, and even just as simple as like understanding like how is your strings stored and represented to the user? Where do they
Hmm.
sit? Is it hard coded? Is it in some sort of CMS? Like where is it? That sort of requirement is becoming that sort of knowledge is becoming more and more of a requirement. And
Yeah.
you come from that technical writing background, so that's obviously something that you're proficient with and can understand. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's something that they are just now having to come to terms with.
Yeah. Also, dating myself, but I remember learning HTML and CSS because I wanted a cool MySpace profile.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
was like, thank you MySpace for teaching me HTML, because like
yeah.
I can like basic understanding of like going through a source. Like if you go to a source on any web page, I can kind of like bumble my way through, and like that would be like a really quick. If anyone's like code is really intimidating, you can just go inspect one of your favorite websites and see if, and this is like a good hack for you if you're looking for a portfolio like case study, you have like a website that you'd like to like rewrite or a message you'd like to rewrite, you can get like a really good screenshot by going to inspect, finding the string in the inspect like toolbar, and then just
Mm.
changing what the text says, and then
Yeah,
you can just grab like a really cool screenshot that way. So
yeah,
but yeah, that's how I learned code. So yeah, we're seeing that we're seeing that more even in today's job descriptions, which is great. But yeah, also signal for you to, yeah, don't be afraid, and like, yeah, widen that T. What do we
yeah.
call an extra wide T?
Extra wide T. I think
That's
though
it.
it's like so many content designers are intimidated by it. And with good reason. I think like my experience with engineers and software developers, if anyone's listening
Hmm.
who is a developer, I love you all. This is no insult to you. They're not the greatest teachers in my experience
Mm.
because they tend to have a lot of assumed knowledge. So I remember asking someone, I didn't know what Node.js was
Yeah.
back in the day, and I asked someone like, what is it? And the explanation they gave me like required me to already understand like a whole heap of tech, and I would say, dumb it down for me, dumb it down for me. I'm
Yeah.
I'm, I'm someone on the street. Tell me what is it, and they still couldn't do it. So I think but it's the same for a lot of designers and stuff as well. You're so in the weeds of whatever it is that you're doing that it's very hard for you to speak about it to someone who has absolutely zero knowledge. But the good thing is, I think working with AI is a good tool for that because you can sort of ask it anything just to get a little bit of
Yeah.
introductory knowledge about whatever it is that you want or need to do. Um, but I don't know, like we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think the trend is definitely towards more finding content designers who are a little bit more comfortable being technical and aren't
Hmm.
afraid of being involved in that side of a product.
Hmm.
Does that scare you, or are you comfortable with it?
Not me, but actually that's like I was mentioning case studies for your portfolio. So if you're looking for your entry level role, that's actually like that reminded me of like you could use Claude Code and
Yeah.
create your case study and like a quick prototype using that. So that's probably more powerful than going into inspect. So maybe I retract my advice about going through the code and maybe just exploring how Claude code could help you make an actual app or like a really quick
Yeah.
prototype. um and
Actually, I
Figma
think the
make
inspect
similarly,
on the
right? So
console is a good piece of advice, though, because I think for a lot of content designers, they won't have even
yeah.
done that. Like the number of people I come across in our workshops who don't have that experience, who don't have that technical experience, and don't come from
Mhm.
that background, you would be shocked at how few people actually have like a good grasp of the technical knowledge. Not out of any skill level, just because they haven't had to get
Yeah,
involved with it. So I actually think
exactly.
that's a good start, getting involved in that.
Mhm.
Um, where do you think this is going, though? Because staying on the forefront of this type of technology, obvious, obviously, it's something anybody has to think about right now. Yes, there are content design teams working on, Oculus and we mentioned the Apple set, and there are a few others around, and there are different types of wearables coming on the market. I'm wondering, like, what's your opinion? Is this always going to be a niche thing, or do you think it will break through into the mainstream and it's something content designers sort of really need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking the most biased person because I spent a lot of my professional career working on smart glasses products or wearable products. I think it's really special. I
Yeah.
think it's really special. I've seen especially parents love it because and this
Mm,
this is maybe unique for Ray-Ban Meta. But the ability for you to be hands free, um, if your kid's doing something super memorable or cute, tap it, you can take a quick video and then share it with grandma and grandpa. Like that, you can be in the moment. You can be two hands, wrestling, playing catch or whatever. You can be in that moment. It's not They're not remembering mom or dad behind the phone like recording you.
yeah.
So that has been like a huge use case.
Mm,
So I can see it. I think again, it's just going to be the barrier of entry on the cost side,
yeah.
and maybe we'll get a bit better there when it comes to like benefits coverage and reimbursement. Um, and I think the other aspect of it is like people still use their phone, right? Because like Ray-Ban
Mm,
Meta does not have a display. Um, so I think we're gonna see maybe some other competitor products that have like a more everyday wear AR display. Focals got close. I think it was still very early product, and I don't think it was quite there. I don't mean to, bash the product, but it got hot to wear for longer than 6 hours, which was like uncomfortable and
yeah.
also felt like a little dangerous. It was quite heavy and it was quite bulky. This is 10 years ago now, right? So things continue to get smaller. Um,
Yeah.
I think I think we will see smart glasses. I was very sold on it is the future of computing, and I've seen how amazing it can be. I think it's just gonna take a lot of wearability and functionality to get people away from their smartphones completely, because we're still seeing the smartphone as complement to the glasses. So it's
Yeah.
just like your Fitbit, it's just like your Apple Watch. Like most people that have an Apple Watch still have a phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know when it will replace the phone, but I think at least for the next little while, we're still gonna see it try to find product market fit until it can become more affordable, or we'll see more smartphone utility come to the glasses on the display. And
Well,
people have a high bar, right? People have a high bar for the display. iPhone screens are super crisp, Retina display. Like I don't know how they're gonna make that or package it into a smart glasses factor without it looking kind of dystopian. And that's what I'm excited to see. But again, I'm kind of torn, right? Because I do really appreciate the vision that North had, where it was technology that's there when you need it and gone when you don't. So I don't know if it's completely about putting a smartphone on your face. I don't know if that's ever been the goal
I
of
don't think
it.
that's it. Like
Yeah.
I think the advantage of the glasses is, I mean, you just mentioned like people who have a watch have a phone, and people you see Apple Watches everywhere, and not just
Yeah.
Apple Watches, but smartwatches in general. I think the good thing about glasses is that even when you don't have power to it or the battery turns off, you can still use them as glasses.
Yes.
Unlike the Apple Watch, which you have to like take off and you can't really
Yeah.
use, except for you can sort of hold it and you can see the time. But that's it really. Glasses have that advantage of you can just wear them all the time, and then when they're charged, they can add extra useful information. And you mentioned some use cases before. I can think of all sorts of things like directions,
Yes.
even things like in a shopping mall. If you're trying to get somewhere and you need to figure out where to go, like it'll just show an arrow or something like that. All sorts
Mm-hmm.
of concepts for sport, cycling, running, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, it's just very easy to see where that could be. As you were just speaking, I just brought this up because I wanted to sort of ground this in something real a little bit. So Bloomberg, which is very in the know about what Apple's product line is, mentions that they've shifted all of their resources to Apple Glasses, and it may even be unveiled this year ahead of a launch in
Yeah.
2027, which is not unheard of for them to sort of announce a product and then launch it, 8 to 12 months later.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're now talking about this in the next 12 months, I think is,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, it's a good sign that it's coming. And I think for content designers who want to just be on the forefront of what's happening, just be aware about new technologies that are coming, new opportunities, working on new types of apps, as we just mentioned, you can prototype all sorts of stuff now. So even if you
Yep.
wanted to start thinking about, what kind of experience you could create for these types of glasses,
Yeah.
now's the time to be thinking about it.
Yeah, and you can even create a like another use case, unique use case that I find like content designers are always the people that are thinking about accessibility. And there's so many
Yeah.
like text to speech features or speech to text features for those who are deaf or hard of hearing. So that could be like a really cool case study to explore and think about that problem and how you would solve it on glasses. Especially when someone doesn't have hearing and can't hear like air charms. How do we
Yep.
communicate that stuff to them?
Yeah.
Um, Haptics, things like that are all really exciting to think about. So yeah, I'm stoked to see what Apple has in store because I feel like it's gonna take someone like Apple. Like Meta's been doing it with Rayman Meta, but I feel like in terms of like computing on face, it's gonna be really interesting for what Apple has in store for us.
I think that the Meta's done a lot of that groundwork in getting people used to the idea of like just the product line. But this has always happened with every type of product line. When before Apple came out with the iPod, I'm sure you remember, like there were all sorts of dinky, weird MP3 players
Yeah.
on the market, that had weird shapes and all sorts of crazy things. And the same with phones. There was a period right before smartphones started coming out, the app where the phones started getting really weird and started using something, and then it took a big company like that to push it forward. And it's the same thing with generative AI. It really there were
Hmm.
other types of uh, AI experiments and programs running until and then OpenAI came out with GPT, and then
Hmm.
turn that upside down. So yeah, I think it will take some sort of mainstream appeal like that, but it's coming. And so if you were going to give content designers maybe one or two pieces of advice to think about before this new wave of technology hits us, and if they want to stay relevant, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, but a lot of us design for the user. And that's really important. And we all say the user should be at the center of everything that we do. Like any good UX course will teach you that. But just as important, especially on the wearable side, and we've been talking a lot about ethics, is designing for the bystander. So you mentioned on Ray-Ban
Mm,
Meta, there's a light that appears when you are recording to sort of signal to other people that there are cameras and something is recording you. In the example of like someone having directions, like how do we design or like notify if someone's blind and trying to navigate with glasses, right? Like text to speech. How are we coaching people that there are obstacles? I feel like there's so many problems that are beyond the user or the wearer of the glasses, that a lot of people don't consider until maybe it's too late. And that was always a design principle when I was at Meta, was like designing for privacy and designing for everyone. So that's, yes, the user, but also the bystander, people that cannot maybe consent to like getting their photo or video taken. Like how are we taking care of those people? So it's a unique challenge and something that's not really explored a lot in like traditional content design coaching or mentorship or case studies. How are we designing or making sure guardrails are in check for those people? Because it is new technology and it is scary and it can feel threatening. And I think that's going to be another thing that sort of there's this like curve of adoption diagram that maybe you've seen it for new technology. I feel like we're like at this curve, and like to get us over that and to normalize it, it's going to need to be designed with other people in mind, so that people know, like, Google Glass went through something similar where people just thought it was so creepy, and it ultimately failed, I think, because a lot of people weren't comfortable with it. It was just so ahead of its time, or maybe didn't think about the implications of beyond the wearer. So I think that's something that's maybe positions us as, narrative designers as we're crafting our user story. In addition to the person that's wearing the glasses for a new feature, like how are you designing this for other people that are maybe, just out in the world as peripheral users of this?
Absolutely. Well, I feel like I've been visited by a prophet telling me what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. I think you're super knowledgeable about everything that's happening, and it's really important for content designers to know. So thank you. Where can people find you online if they want to speak to you, connect with you?
You can find me. I have a website, carlygray.ca. That's where a lot of my portfolio is. I also have my resume there. I am open to work, open to new opportunities. So if you are a hiring manager, you can definitely drop me a line there too. You can find me on LinkedIn, Carly Gray, and you can find me on Twitter as well, Carly Gray. Gray with 2 Y's.
Exactly. Twitter, not X.
Sorry, content designer X is always going to be Twitter to me.
Sorry. It'll always be Twitter. Carly, this has been great. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast.
Thank you, Patrick. It's always nice talking to you. Thanks for having me on and for all your support.
That was my interview with Carly Gray. If you want to connect with Carly, head to the show notes. You can find all the links there. Once again, if you're interested, check out the Content Design AI Accelerator. Applications are open until Friday, January 30. So if you want to build something in a cohort of content designers, I would definitely check it out. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. See you next time.